The Tibetan Sacred World, Previous World Realities. According to the Tibetan Buddhist understanding, numerous worlds previous to our own ended with a Nyamaidu, a tainted time, Kali Yuga in Sanskrit. Each was destroyed by a great fire followed by winds and floods. Although most of each world reality's inhabitants failed to attain enlightenment before the cycle itself played itself out, many did succeed in becoming bodhisattvas, heroines with awakened hearts and minds, and some fully enlightened as Buddhas in the course of one or many lifetimes. Tibetans know of three previous world realities during this cosmic eon. The first was conceived by the one who makes things visible, Nampa Nangze in Tibetan, Vairocana in Sanskrit. He is a Buddha composed of crystalline clear light, the very same light that mystics worldwide have described as infusing the mind's awareness. Such Buddhas have the power to send out their awareness and subtle vital energies into one or more forms. They emanate into the active personas of world-shaping bodhisattvas and teachers in order to achieve specific creative purposes. It is by this process that the one who makes things visible initiated the first world system. The second world reality was materialized by a glowing blue Buddha called the Unshakable One, Mikyopa Akshobhya. Although the activity of this bodhisattva emanation, the thunderbolt bearer, Chakra Dorje, Vajrapani, like the first world, this world also went through a natural cycle of creation, growth, decay, and dissolution. Here many sentient beings gained enlightenment. Unfortunately, most did not. From the mind and vitality of the yellow-bodied Buddha, the jewel-born one, Rinchen Chungden Ratnasambhava, came his bodhisattva aspect who created the third world reality. This world too experienced an inevitable cyclic existence. Finally, out of the orange-red light of mind and the vital force that is the Buddha of boundless light, Opame Amitabha, there emanated the Bodhisattva boundless love, Chenrezi Avalokiteshvara. He is the designer and compassionate overseer of the present fourth world reality. Tibetans consider Chenrezi to be humanly emanated as successive Dalai Lamas. Each world reality also receives, it is said, a great teacher who emanates out of the awareness and reality of its associated Buddha and Bodhisattva. The world-shaping teacher awaits his return in his own paradise, a spiritual realm of great beauty and enjoyment. But this worldly Buddha must leave his pure land and emanate into gross human form in order to lead sentient beings into enlightenment. According to this system, the great teacher of our era was Gautama Siddhartha of the Shakya clan, who became known on his body-mind's enlightenment as Shakyamuni Buddha. Although he was considered to have already been enlightened when born miraculously into a noble family some 25 centuries ago, he still had to undergo the heroic journey of fully revealing his illuminated inner nature. After passing over 80 years of life in gross human form, his consciousness returned again to the font of all phenomena, known as the void. Since then, and until the end of our present world era, boundless love has resumed his stewardship of all sentient beings. He holds forth his pure hand called Potala, to aid all beings by means of his infinite compassion. In his incarnations as the Dalai Lamas, he has guided sentient beings from the Potala Palace atop Holy Red Mountain, rising in the heart of Lhasa. Accordingly, the Dalai Lama is considered the successor to Shakyamuni as the Buddhist teacher of this fourth world, and this is why he is so important to Tibetans. Each of the previous three world realities had teachers like Shakyamuni, and another, the worldly Buddha of the coming fifth world reality cycle, is said to be on the verge of materializing. Chamba Maitreya awaits his return in a celestial pure land called the Place of Joy, Garden, Tushita. His fifth world reality will be created out of the dark green body-mind light of the all-encompassing one, Amo Gasidi Donyodrupa. This suggests that the fifth world reality promises energetic activity in pursuit of the goal of an ideal state of existence for all sentient beings. We are, however, part of this fourth world's reality. We live between this earth and sky, and since time immemorial there has existed throughout Asia, from Sri Lanka to the tip of Siberia, a potent model of our present place reality. Being a spiritual model, it is not primarily a physical map, but a rendering of spiritual geography or geomancy. The Tibetan Geomantic Universe. The Tibetan Geomantic view is a local refinement of the Axis Mundi world axis model that became widespread in India during the Vedic period and was subsequently adopted by Indian Buddhists. Centuries later, when Buddhism spread to the heart of Asia, Tibet, Turkestan, Manchuria, Mongolia, and Siberia, it encountered indigenous versions of its universal model of the world. The major Tibetan vision of the fourth world reality is based on the teachings of the Wheel of Time Tantra, Tunyuki Korlo Kalachakra, whose name refers to the cyclic Korlo chakra nature of reality that is both of and beyond time, Tun, Kala. The Kalachakra Tantra's version of the Axis Mundi universe consists of a great round cosmic mountain. It is embedded in a five-tiered cylindrical base from the mountain up, of the primal elements of space, wind, fire, water, and earth. Rirab Nungpo, Mount Meru, rises metaphysically from the place of the Buddha's enlightenment at Bodh Gaya, India. There is marked by the massive architectural monument known as the Mahabodhi Stupa. Surrounding the circular central mountain are 7 ranges of snow peaks, alternating with 7 great seas, and beyond these, in a primeval ocean, are 4 groups of 3 world continents, each set to a cardinal direction and colored according to the basic scheme of this system. The fourth world system was created on a base of ferociously spinning wind. Out of its intense clockwise vortex was precipitated a gigantic double dorje, a crossed thunderbolt scepter, symbol of the tantric path. It became the foundation of the mountain. Several vivid expressions of the cosmic mountain model are found in human-made and natural features of the Tibetan landscape, and there is no contradiction in this, since for Tibetans several objects can mystically embody a given essence or idea. Accordingly, central Tibet's Samye Monastery is the cosmic mountain in its architectural form. Tibet's oldest classic monastery, Samye Gompa, was constructed during the 9th century on the model of the Mount Meru world system. The main central temple complex represents the central cosmic peak, Mount Meru. 4 sacred monuments, chortens, positioned toward each quarter, symbolize the 4 world continents. The sun and moon are signified in 2 small temple buildings, while the circular wall surrounding them is the chain of iron mountains encircling our world system. Numerous other buildings echo the placement of all the beings and objects described in the offering mandala's text, see Appendix 2, although many of these, as well as the upper levels of the main temple, have been destroyed at the hands of the Chinese army and through enforced neglect. The most compelling of all naturally occurring expressions of the cosmic mountain at the center of the universe is Kang Rinpoche, the great precious snow jewel, also known as Tahisei and Mount Kailash. It is an extraordinarily distinctive mountain. It is perfect in its perfect symmetry. It appears like a glowing snowy crystal growing out of a lotus flower of red rock. This characteristic sets it well apart from other snow peaks of Tibet, for in its physicality it is truly an axis mundi. Below it, at some distance, are 2 pristine lakes connected by a thin natural channel. One is circular, sun-like, and the other is somewhat crescent-shaped, like the moon. Lake Manas Sarovar, Mafamtso, and Lake Rakshastal, Langakso, represent the 2 planetary primal energies, male and female, that must be united in the inner axis mundi of the psychic nervous system, so that the mind of enlightenment may arise. The Great Snow Jewel Mountains mandala of sacred mountains, lakes, valleys, and passes defines the source of four of Asia's major rivers rising near its flanks: the Sangpo Brahmaputra exiting at the east, the Karnali at the south, the Sutlej in the west, and the Indus in the north. These characteristics and the results of certain historical events have made it the holiest of Asia's mountains. It is axis mundi to Hindus, Buddhists, and practitioners of Bon. To Tantric Buddhists, Kang Rinpoche is the base of the mandala realm of a powerful tutelary divinity known as Great Bliss, Demchok Samvara. Great Bliss radiates a powerful deep blue luminescence. He is envisioned in spiritual reproductive union with the equally intense crimson glowing thunderbolt Sao, Dorje Phagmo Vajravarahi. Her unmitigated primordial wisdom energy conquers inner and outer obstacles to enlightenment. Thus, Kang Rinpoche is also the cosmic mountain of the Tantric path. As Tisa, it is the most sacred mountain of the ancient Bon religion and the Lari soul mountain of the ancient western Tibetan kingdom of Zangzung, said to be the Bon religion's home. Bon practitioners visualize the mountain as a crystalline chorten. The chorten is the preeminent monument of both Buddhism and Bon. It is considered by both traditions to be the symbol of the enlightened mind. A sacred vertical object requires circular motion around it. This activity is known in Tibetan as korwa. Korwa is a way of gaining spiritual power, wang, by circumambulating a holy place. Always for Tibetan Buddhists and Navajos, it is done in a sunwise, clockwise manner. As one circumambulates a chorten or a sacred mountain, one links up with its psycho-spiritual energy and enters its ideal universe through the powers of the imagination. For chortens, the korwa takes a matter of a few minutes, while for Kang Rinpoche, the tour around its mandala-shaped realm takes anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks. For many Tibetans, the most immediate natural expression of the Grand Axis Mundi scheme can be found in the heartland of central Tibet. This mandala centers around the Kichu Waters of Happiness river valley in which sits Lhasa. At the Lhasa's mandala's heart, at 3 sacred hills, Red Mountain, Marpuri, is considered the primary of the 3. It first derived its power from its aboriginal spirit protector, Nyen Chentangla, the great Nyen of the steppes, who is also the indwelling protector of the sacred mountain of the north, which goes by the same name. But more recently, Red Mountain has become sacred to Tibet's Buddhists. It has become the de facto axis mundi of central Tibet due to the presence of the Patala Palace of the Dalai Lama, who is Chenrezig, and with his spiritual emanation and partner, the great goddess Dolkar, White Tara, that now rises at its summit. To the Tibetan inner eye, the Patala Palace is one and the same with their metaphysical paradise called Patala. Likewise, it is with no difficulty of belief that the Patala is also situated on a mythic island off the coast of Asia. In fact, it may be found in all 4 cardinal directions. A smaller peak, Panpuri or Pongwari, is dedicated to the Bodhisattva of transcendent wisdom, Yambayang Manjushri, but in earlier aboriginal times it was the abode of a powerful warrior divinity, Drala. Similarly, Chakpori, Iron Mountain, is the physical base for the paradise of the Thunderbolt Bearer. Previously, it was home to a powerful serpentine spirit, Lu, whose cave is now a holy shrine full of self-manifesting rocky images maintained by a monastery near the mountain's base. Balancing these central summits is the sacred lake of the Serpent King, Lui Gyalpo, situated behind the Patala Palace and the Kichu River. The Lake of the Serpent King's special character comes from its inhabitant, as well as being situated in the same proper geometric relationship to the Patala and its Red Mountain, as are the twin sacred lakes with respect to Kang Rinpoche. Lhasa is immediately surrounded by a ring of sacred peaks, none lower than 16,000 feet. One, Bumpari, the treasure vase mountain, is shaped at its summit like a ritual vase used to hold sanctified water, the mentally created nectar of enlightenment, and jeweled offerings. Its summit is the preeminent location for incense offering ceremonies to the full range of power beings of the Tibetan cosmos. Scattering among these sacred peaks are less evident places of spiritual energy. These include natural caves that have been used by yogins and saints for their meditative work, and by magicians and shamans for contacting the indwelling powers of these sacred summits and the cosmos at large. This central Tibetan mandala is protected, as are all mandalas, by powerful beings to the four directions. They are the warrior divinities of Yola, existing atop the four sacred mountains, Yarla Shampo, the mountain of the east, Kula Kangri to the south, a Himalayan peak also sacred to the Bhutanese, Hebo Kangxiang to the west on the way to Yangtze, and Nyamchentangla, the range to the north of Lhasa. To complete the central Tibetan geomantic universe, an essentially impossible task considering all the regional and local sacred sites, we cannot forget the range of earth divinities inhabiting its watery realms, valleys, ridges, mountain passes, and summits, and beyond them, on lotus-shaped clouds. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they will be described in Part 2 as examples of the natural order of earth and sky. At its essence, the Tibetan universe is a pulsating, living, variegated field of earth and sky, cross and refined elements, sentient beings not yet perfected, and others who have gone across into enlightenment. It is a powerful expression of the void out of which all phenomena come, of which they are an inextricable part, and to which they all return. This sacred fourth world of the Tibetans is nurturing yet terrifying, finished but full of potential. It is the arena of life, death, and rebirth, and an architectural blueprint of a way of life in quest of enlightenment. While inevitably there are more such world realities to come, and with them potential for enlightenment, Tibetans also know that as time cycles onward, precious chances for spiritual growth may be wasted. The teachings thus constantly remind them to strive to establish a society of enlightenment in the here and now. The fundamental model of such an enlightened civilization is known as Shambhala. It is said to already exist, although it is beyond the reach of our imperfect senses and primitive means of transport. Shambhala is said to be somewhere to the north. Perhaps it is in old Turkestan, perhaps the Pamir Mountains, perhaps it is the ancient kingdom of Zangzung in western Tibet, perhaps it is everywhere or nowhere, perhaps it is within. The enlightened way of life in Shambhala is based upon the Kalachakra Tantra, which is the northern Buddhist unified description of the natural process of this world reality, existing simultaneously outside and within our body-minds, and of the means for harmonizing with it all. Shambhala's capital city, Kalapa, is visualized as situated at the heart of an 8-section mandala of mountains and rivers. It is presided over by a line of universal monarchs who are themselves emanations, incarnations of Kalachakra. In fact, the prophecies associated with the Kalachakra way of life indicate that this pure land will be the world's last bastion of Buddhism during the degenerate era of this world's reality cycle. It is said that Shambhala will stand alone in an otherwise barbaric world, food for thought considering contemporary colonial actions toward Tibet and other spiritually based cultures such as the Navajo. Shambhala will serve as an antidote to this degeneration. Its armies, led by heroic spiritual warriors, will vanquish barbaric human ignorance, purifying the world of obstacles to compassion and the enlightenment of all beings. Shambhala looks like this to a Tibetan's inner eye. Although ineffable, Shambhala is a sacred center of the Tibetan universe. So too is Kang Rinpoche. So too Lhasa. So too are all sentient beings within their own realities. This center of heaven, this core of the earth, this heart of the world, fenced round by snow, the headland of all sinners, where the mountains are high and the land is pure, when men are born sages and heroes. Ancient Tibetan Song. 2. The Navajo Sacred World. Navajo origin teachings parallel those of Buddhist Tibet. The Navajo recognize a succession of previous world realities that underwent periods of growth and destruction. At the close of each cycle, a new reality is said to have emerged from the ruins of the former world. The emergence narratives describe how the first people journeyed and evolved during the ancient times. Each of these previous worlds originally had been pure, but had become marred by fighting, degenerate acts, and destructive attitudes among the Navajo spiritual ancestors as they attempted to make these world realities their home. On arriving here in the fifth world, the ancient people succeeded in structuring their reality with natural forms and energies, such as mountains and light, that would be necessary to their livelihood. These spiritual histories are guidebooks to the origin of the Navajo's way of life and tutorials for maintaining harmony and happiness in the face of life's inevitable difficulties. Thus, the histories tell that the first world, Nihodilhil, was a dark, mainly watery place whose dankness was relived only by an occasional ridge of earth and relieved only by an occasional ridge of earth and by curtain mist of colored light at the central points along the horizon. A variety of insect-like people populated its gloom, being possessing the force of life, thought, and some holy powers. At first they got along quite well with one another. Eventually, though, they turned to quarreling, and with it bad feelings arose. The people were no longer living in a peaceful nature. The ants and other winged species, including rational creatures yet to evolve into people, were forced to leave the first world. Explained one chanter. The first world followers flew to the apex of the sky dome. There, with the help of a mysterious messenger divinity, some say a divinity having the qualities and power of blue wind, they arrived at an opening into the bottom of the next world. Below them, the first world was destroyed by rising waters. In the second world, Nihodotzloios, all was blue. Its hue was relieved only by colored cardinal lights along the horizon. They provided the only changeable light to the world. There was little vegetation, and the native beings were insect people resembling locusts, grasshoppers, and corn beetles. As time went on, the winged first worlders began to thrive and intermarry with the people of the second world. But sexual infidelity between a young first worlder and the wife of the second world's beetle chief led to the newcomers' banishment, and they were forced to journey into the new world. Circling higher and higher into the sky, they were eventually led to another place of emergence, this time by a yellow-bodied wind divinity. The third world, Nahaltso, was suffused with a golden light. Here lived swallow-like people in mud huts. They also lived in relative harmony with the newcomers, at least at first, but the peace disintegrated after sexual misadventure culminated in social strife and world destruction by rising waters. The first worlders and their offspring from contacts in the second and third worlds again flew up into the sky and were shown the way toward the next place of living by a white wind divinity. The fourth world, Ni-Haigaya, was once of white light. Here the ancient travelers encountered and married other beings, most notably the Kinyasani, or house dwellers. These native people of the fourth world lived in groups of stone houses sheltered in great canyon-side caves. The hopeful fourth world was the first to have a highly contoured landscape full of mountains, canyons, and rivers. Among these stood the progenitors of the fifth world's 7 major sacred mountains, and the arrival into the beautiful fourth world proved to be a major turning point for the people. Here they would attain their full humanoid form and gain initial guidance in what would eventually be the basis of Dine Be'ina, the Navajo way of life. One day, four holy people, having bodies of light, arrived at the settlement of the travelers on a rainbow surrounded by a halo of sunbeams. They instructed the winged and beaked, but otherwise humanoid people to cleanse themselves, for they smelled badly, in anticipation of the divinity's return 12 days later. The holy people were known in this world by the names White Body, Blue Body, Yellow Body, and Black Body, according to the colors that radiated from their forms. They would become known to the Navajo of the Fifth World by other names. Leading the delegation to the Fourth World, travelers was the tutelary of the Dawn, the East. Named White Body, he was dressed in white buckskin robes and had a headdress of white eagle tail feathers. His face was white. In the Fifth World, he would be known as Talking God, Hashchitli. White Body was complemented by the tutelary of the Western Twilight, known to the Fourth Worlders as Yellow Body, and into the Fifth World as Calling God, Hashiogun, the essence of the harvest and the home. He stood behind White Body on the rainbow. Blue Body radiated the color of the sky at full noon and the waters of a lake. In the Fifth World, he is known as Water Sprinkler God, Toneinili. He brings celestial waters of the upper life to the lower life of the earth's surface by means of his water bottle. Black Body followed the other three on the rainbow. In the present Fifth World, he is the nighttime complement to Water Sprinkler God. As the Black or Fire God, Hashishini, he ignites the stars in the night sky for the Navajo people to follow. He bears 7 white dots, symbolizing the Pleiades, on his right cheek as a sign of his power. 12 days after their first appearance, the 4 tutelaries returned to the camp of the new arrivals. With them came other holy people, likewise endowed with the ultimate mind and power of life. They had come to mold the first worlders into fully formed earth surface walkers, people who stood the chance of becoming holy people themselves under the tutelaries' guidance. The 4 divinities instructed the people to place a perfect ear of white corn along with a white eagle's downy feather and an ear of yellow corn along with a yellow eagle's feather between 2 specially prepared sacred buckskins spread upon the ground. The holy wind people, source of life, thought, and speech, entered and circulated throughout these objects, while other holy people, such as the Mirage people, chanted and ministered to them. When the top buckskin was removed, in place of the corn and feathers lay 2 human figures who would be known as First Man and First Woman. First Man and First Woman mated and produced many children. Their children, in turn, married some of the holy people, the First Worlders, and the house dwellers, who had originally populated the Fourth World. Out of these unions came the Navajos' direct spiritual ancestors, who would arrive in the present Fifth World. All went well for a while in the Fourth World. Eventually, however, difficulties began to surface. For one, Coyote materialized on the scene. Coyote was not evil-intentioned by nature, but did manage to cause all kinds of trouble. The worst of these was a great rift that arose between men and women of the first people. Once that serious threat to the first people had been resolved, Coyote caused another serious problem to arise. It seems that 2 young women were dragged down under the surface of a great river by Tihutstoldi and the big water creature. When a delegation of first people went down to her lodge to ask for the young women's return, Coyote accompanied them. Unknown to the others, Coyote abducted 2 of the water divinity's babies. In her wrath over her loss, Tihulsodi caused a great flood to take a range of white mountains to engulf the world. As it bore down on the first people's settlement, a solution came to 2 of the men. A gigantic reed was planted that rapidly grew into the sky. The people entered it just in time to escape the deluge. They ascended the swaying bamboo-like tube, and with the help of Badger, succeeded in cutting their way through it and into the base of the 5th, the glittering or changeable world. The people were now at another turning point in their spiritual evolution. They climbed out of the Haazna, the emerging place situated to the north, high in the San Juan Rockies. After it was discovered that Coyote had abducted the water creature's babies from the fourth world, the travelers finally understood the meaning of the flood. The babies were apologetically and prayerfully returned to their mother via the emergence lake in a ceremonial basket made of white shell. Only then did the rising waters subside. The fifth world is the world of thought and knowledge. While it has its own powers and landforms, such as what now exists came about by first man and first woman, and the holy people having thought and planned it into existence. They did this through the first blessing way rite. In it, they described a world in which all was in Hosho, beauty, by means of Hosugo Nasahakis, beauty thoughts, Hoshoji Sa'ad, beauty words, and Hoshogo Daina, beauty life. While this fifth world is a world of beauty, it is not a static one. It is a changeable world that cycles along with the colored mists of the daily cycle and with the seasons of the year. This was the reality and the promise facing the first people as they moved into the highland we call Dinebikeya, the Navajo's land. After emerging from the fourth world, the people preserved through numerous trials and obstacles, finally making camp near the rim of the place of emergence. There, first man called upon the winds to dry the earth by offering turquoise chips to the 5 chiefs of the winds for the service. Next, the incomplete world's specific features had to be thought up and created, so a sacred space was mentally constructed for the purpose. The first Hogan was a magnificent sunbeam and rainbow-adorned creation. The human-made Hogan, patterned after it, is also a holy creation. Vertical support posts are set to each of the cardinal directions after a chanter is retained to bless their positions on the earth with cornmeal during a blessing way rite adapted specially for the purpose. The first Hogan was now complete. First man and first woman began to create the distinctive features of the fifth world. They were aided by the holy people, and in particular Talking God, who as the holy person of the dawn is thought itself. Present too was his partner, Calling God, who is the sunset, the harvest, and the home. Seated in the first Hogan, they began to think and plan out the features of the new world. First man had carried a sacred medicine bundle up from the fourth world and now laid its contents out before them in the first Hogan. Some histories recount that among its contents were tiny corn-shaped figurines made from the 4 sacred directional jewels, white shell, turquoise, abalone, and black jet. They were placed in a particular pattern on the sandy floor of the Hogan, in the order that continues to determine the inner code of today's sand paintings. The figurines were metamorphosed by thought, the powers of the imagination, as well as rational, discursive thought, and by speech, songs, and prayers into their bigistin, their inlying forms of spiritual beings. In this way, they conceived and created vital humanoid inner forms for all living things, such as plants, animals, and earth surface walkers, humans. Inner forms were also assigned to the landscape. This makes the mountains, canyons, springs, lakes, and so on much more than geological features. They are the outer phenomena of inner powers. The first planners dressed their inner forms in the outer physical materials they were to inhabit. During a night-long ceremony in the Navajo Hogan, known as the no-sleep, cycles of prayers and songs from the blessing way help the participants visualize and recreate the specifics of the fifth world, just as the first planners did in their primordial Hogan. According to the Nightway lineage, which uses a particularly vivid form of no-sleep, first man had soil samples from the fourth world's 7 sacred mountains, 6 sacred mountains according to Blessing Way, in his sacred medicine bundle when he arrived in the fifth world. With the aid of Black God, he created and dressed each other each outer mountain in its appropriate jewels. Clockwise, east to north, white seashell, turquoise, abalone, and jet black. The three inner mountains were then positioned and dressed with mixed gods, encircled mountains, mixed jewels, Spruce Mountain, and sacred mirage stones, Mirage Mountain. The inner forms of these fifth world phenomena were transported into their newly recreated outer forms by means of the smoke of the Hogan fire, fueled by the songs, prayers, and imaginings of the first people and their tutelary deity mentors. The next morning found the geomantic work complete. With the dawn, Talking God and Calling God ascended each sacred summit in turn to view the results. They saw that all abided in beauty. Similarly, nowadays the no sleep ends with the one sung over, for whom the ceremony is held, walking out the door into the eastern dawn's light, taking in 4 breaths of the dawn, and through the powers of the mind, imagining the same perfect world viewed at the dawn of the fifth world by the divinities. The person becomes inspired with an inner reality restored to beauty. With the fifth world now fully created, the most challenging period of the first people was about to begin. After a long and difficult cyclic journey into the new reality, they now had another chance to create a society of the spirit. To accomplish their goals, they would have to become reconciled, restored into balance with the powers of the sacred world. Some succeeded and became the eternal powers of the phenomenal world, the indwelling holy people of the rocks and streams. While voices are in the wind and the sound of the birds, others possessed too much disorder and had to return to the emergence hole, or at best live out their lives with birth and death in the fifth world. The Navajo Geomantic Universe. The Navajos view their fifth world as a pattern of physical landmarks that are imbued with mind and vital force. The basic model consists of 4 outer sacred mountains. These are called ESWN, Cisnagini Blanca Peak, Tsudzil, Mount Taylor, Dukuuslid, San Francisco Peaks, and Dibenitsa'a, Hesperus Peak. They are positioned cardinally around a Navajo world axis whose earthly form is considered to be Huerfano Mesa in northern New Mexico. Its Navajo name, Zinaudili, meaning mountain around which moving was done, encircled mountain, refers to the early movement of the clans during settlement of the fifth world. This peak stands in a central relationship with 3 other summits. Spruce Mountain, Chu'uli'i, is the birthplace of Changing Woman and is considered by some Blessing Way chanters to be the heart of the earth. Encircled Mountain is considered the lungs of the earth. The warrior twins were born at Encircled Mountain. The 3rd central summit, Mirage Mountain, Akida Nasta'ani, is a place of powerful protection, where one goes for aid under the worst conditions. It never fails. It does what other mountains can't do, according to one chanter. It is the mountain of powerful action. Perhaps the best visual expression of the Navajo geomantic cosmos is a mandala paradigm produced for a bicultural education project at the Rough Rock, Arizona community schools. Its title is quite revealing: The Philosophy of Navajo Teaching from the Center of Life to the 4 Directions and the Lower and Upper Life. The image cites the Navajo's land at the center of North America's Colorado Plateau. On a circular earth, Earthwoman, between 4 appropriately colored sacred mountains. At their center stands a conical male hogan with a fire burning at its center. This male hogan was originally the place for holding ceremonies, but these days the female hogan is their usual site, male hogans being almost extinct. The conical shape of the male hogan survives in the sweat lodge. It is a place for physical and psychic prophylaxis, a place where warriors purified themselves before and after battle. Today it is the essential site for thinking out problems, personal talk, and planning by separate groups of men and women. All this is signified by the central hogan. In summary, Navajo and Tibetan creation histories describe a difficult cyclic journey into beauty and enlightenment. They tell of a people caught up in the web of actions and reactions within their reality, who at various turns seize the opportunity to transform themselves step by step into more realized beings. They became reborn into successively new and pure worlds. With the aid of tutelary divinities, those who had gone before them into holiness, they were guided toward oneness with an ideal cosmos and harmonious state of being. Once the Tibetans and Navajos' ancestors discovered and described their sacred world, they continued their quest for understanding by exploring the identity of its innermost landscape. This process is part of the next phase in their journey of awakening and connecting to the nature of things, the search for spirit in the sacred world. Spirit in the sacred world. Navajo and Tibetan sacred maps depict a world reality extending to the four quarters between the expanses of earth and sky. More than physical maps, they consider topographic features such as mountains, valleys, rivers, and lakes to be outer receptacles for indwelling living and thinking beings. These spiritual beings have been variously described as deities, gods, spirits, and elementals, for they are considered to be empowered with ideal ways of thinking, expressing, and acting. The personas of these divinities have been carefully envisioned, then depicted so as to best symbolize the basic powers and qualities of the cosmos. In this way, they have served as spiritual reference points to countless generations of Navajos and Tibetans who have taken the path leading to awakening the ideal within themselves. The elaborate pantheons of the Navajos and Tibetans are ultimately expressions of a transcending unity, a oneness, a holiness existing as the basis of all things. Joseph Campbell observed the Native Americans and the civilizations of ancient Asia share a monistic philosophy, one standing in sharp relief to our biblical estrangement between nature and humanity. By monistic, he meant that person and cosmos interpenetrate one another as a seamless unity. Their mutual identity creates the natural basis for order, harmony, health, and happiness to prevail. This contrasts with our Western view of reality that is founded on fundamental dualism, the fall from the garden, which in turn generally reinforces a state of disorder, disharmony, unhealthiness, and unhappiness. Referring to monism, Campbell explains that this philosophy, in fact, is fundamental to archaic thought generally, and must have been carried to the Americas by the earliest Paleolithic immigrants. The monistic universe can be thought of as an integrated system of energies, forms, actions, and ideas. Externalized, it is nature's ecosystem and the myriad divinities, power beings populating it. Internally, it is an intricate weave of subtle energies, tendencies, and thought processes. This original conceptual reality, still informing the spiritual systems and creative choices of Tibetans and Navajos, is what I refer to as the circle of the spirit. The phrase describes the world into which traditional Navajos and Tibetans are born, the universe to which they awaken and to which they strive to connect daily in even their most mundane thoughts, expressions, and actions. Tibetan spiritual ecology. The Tibetan sacred world is home to a vast range of sentient beings. Some are the ideal, empowered, and enlightened kind, while the majority are yet to become so. Some are corporeal, perceivable by our normal senses. Others are known to be just as real but invisible except to the mind's eye. The spiritual ecology of the Tibetans describes a matrix of power beings associated with various naturally existing features found between earth and sky. We begin with the energies of the inner earth. Nothing is more earthy than the meeting place of soil, rock, and water. Springs, lakes, and rivers all bear the life's blood of the world. These are the natural bodies of the Lu, Naga in Sanskrit. They are envisioned as serpent-bodied mermaids and mermasters. Physically, they are embodied by snakes, frogs, and scorpions, powerful organisms associated with the realm of the inner earth. Such inner earth powers possess energies and natural tendencies of conserving, collecting, and congealing. These qualities manifest in extensive caches of Norbu, first fulfilling jewels, or wish-fulfilling jewels, which they jealously guard at the bottom of their watery domains. The Lu provide health and prosperity when one attunes one's thoughts, expressions, and actions to them through meditative visualizations, prayers, and ritual offerings. If, however, one falls into disharmony with them, specific kinds of illness and misfortune on both the mental and physical planes will surely result. Put another way, if one does not integrate qualities of Luness into life, one becomes imbalanced, ill with an inner earth-like disorder. Spiritually attuned Tibetans constantly interact with power beings inhabiting spots of earth on which they live, work, and travel. The Sadag, master of the earth, is frequently invoked through prayers and ritual acts. Any significant events that takes place on his localized spot of earth, essentially any human action ranging from plowing, planting, and home building to outdoor operatic and dance performances, exorcisms, and tantric initiations, requires the permission of the master of the earth. By outwardly asking for his permission, one inwardly reinforces a sense of connection with and respect for one's own place on earth. The spine of rocks rising immediately above the Sadag's soil is the provenance of the Jidag, master of the four quarters. Stone cairns supporting vertical tree branches bedecked with colored cloth flags are set at the high points of the Jidag's domain. This is a necessary procedure since the master of the four quarters is the protector of his valley. He allows barley and rapeseed to grow and nurtures yaks, sheep, and human beings. To give offerings in respect to the Jidag is to establish a humble connection with the vastness of the cosmos, of which the master of the four quarters is a minor but powerful expression. The trees and scattered rocks of the flanks of the mountains overlooking the valleys are inhabited too. Their elemental energies are known as Tsen. They are envisioned as dark, red-bodied, armor-wearing warriors riding pale red horses over the mountain trails. Their arrows are extremely powerful and can cause serious illness should a person be struck by one. The shoulders of the great peaks are the domain of the all-powerful Nyan. Nyan are considered to be warrior-like protectors of entire mountain watersheds, consisting of several valleys that are in turn overseen by different masters of the four quarters. The bulk of the mountain's mass, is Nyan. One Nyan Chentangla, the indwelling protector deity of a sacred mountain range north of the capital city of Lhasa, has achieved great status in the pantheons of Buddhist power beings. The old order of Tibetan Buddhism, the Nyingmapas, recognizes this having achieved the state of bodhisattvahood. The summits of the great snow mountains are considered the abode of the most powerful and influential of terrestrial divinities. These Yulha country gods are both warrior-like protectors and the embodiment of the collective energy and consciousness of an entire region. Certain mountains presided over by Yulas are known as Lari, soul mountains. More than rock, soil, trees, and springs, such a mountain, Ri, is considered the collective embodiment of pieces of the La, the consciousness principle of all the people, animals, and hosts of invisible sentient beings living below its summit. In a similar manner, trees, stones, and lakes can be life trees, life stones, and life lakes of a single or several individuals. Put in the Tibetan manner, the country god stands as the center of the mandala of an entire region. It is the personification of the sentience and power of the place. Indeed, it is not only that an element of one's consciousness composes part of that of the country god, but likewise an aspect of the consciousness of the divinity is part of the person, since all Tibetans are said to be born with a miniature country god protector at the crown of their heads. Since the advent of Buddhism, the powers of the imagination are most often called upon to connect with the divinities populating the sky realm. These divinities include, in addition to the ancient sky powers of Great Eagle and Thunder Dragon, the major tutelary deities of Tantra called Yidams. Such Buddhas demonstrate the means of attaining enlightenment. They embody clarified mechanisms of mind, speech, and body and emerge from the sky-like void, the emptiness of the cosmos. This empowered state is full of the purest clear light energy of mind, but empty of all illusory forms that the unclarified mechanisms of mind habitually construct. Being of the void's energy of clear light, these Buddhas can emanate, transmute, as appropriate into various other tutelary and protective divinities. The way by which the power of emptiness is transferred and differentiated into appropriate forms resembles the branch system of a tree. The trunk is the void's unity and font of the life force and sentience, while the fruit and leaves are its infinite emanations. To the tantric understanding, there are levels into which the unstained, clear light mind's awareness of the void can manifest or emanate. They are described as the three bodies, kusum trikaya. The first level is called the truth body, choku dharmakaya. Here the void, the grand unity that is empty of all conventional forms and limited conceptions, is signified by a sky blue Buddha figure in sexual union with a white-bodied goddess. They are the Adi Buddha, a vivid depiction of the oneness of universal opposites, the primordial reality made manifest in primal human fashion. In some tantric traditions, the primordial Buddha is envisioned as holding a bell and thunderbolt scepter in crossed hands. This Buddha is the holder of the thunderbolt scepter, Dorje Chang Vajrahara. The next level of differentiation of the void's emptiness manifests as 5, sometimes 6, interrelated Buddha forms visualized as glowing rainbow-colored figures, often in union with their respective female consorts. These conqueror or meditational tantric Buddhas are emblems of families of Buddhas, each symbolizing specific enlightened mental and physical processes. Their sum total is a similarly shaped being who embodies the void's absolute, irreducible essence. This is the diamond being, Dorje Sempa Vajrasattva. The transcendent Buddhas, being composed of colored mind's light, are one step further from the undifferentiated void and slightly more material than the primordial Buddha. Their beautiful adornment, their bodies of light, and their luminous paradises are signs of their blissful state of being. Tibetans thus envision them as having enjoyment or adorned bodies, Longku Sambhogakaya, the adorned or enjoyment body realm being in the name applied to the level of emanation out of emptiness. Such is also the state of being of spiritual heroes and heroines, the bodhisattvas, and of the Yidam tutelary deities who actively lead other beings into their state of enlightenment. Since they are composed of the void's most subtle vibrations of vitality and awareness, they are visible not to the physical eyes, but only to the inner wisdom eye of the imagination. One could say that the adorned body state exists for the purpose of creating an interplay of the body and the imagination. It potentiates the practitioner's body energies and awareness of mind, the body-mind, into an ideal state of acting, expressing, and thinking as possessed by that deity. The third body of Tantra is the most accessible expression of the void's emptiness. This is the emanation body, Tulku or Nirmanakaya. It is a living, usually human form taken by a Buddha or Bodhisattva's mind stream in order to aid sentient beings on their paths to enlightenment. Many Tibetan lamas, but not all, are considered to be tulku, incarnations of enlightened beings, and out of respect for their spiritual standing, Tibetans call them Rinpoche, Great Precious One. Such manifestations, incarnations of the enlightened mind include Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived and taught during the 6th century BCE, Likewise, there were world-shaping teachers who emanated in previous epochs before him, and there are ones yet to come during future cycles of the eons. It is said that the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni, was the fourth in a long line of such teachers who will manifest during our world eon. It is said that they appear during times of moral, physical, and spiritual degradation to act as an antidote to the sufferings of samsara, conventional reality. In summary, the three bodies system outlines how tantric deities and reality itself are organized. Out of emptiness comes a primordial Buddha state, which differentiates into five energies and qualities of action, expression, and thought. The transcendent Buddhas are the prime emblems of this transformation. Consider the transcendent Buddha of our world reality, boundless light. The active emanation of this sunset-colored glowing Buddha's insight and energy is the Bodhisattva boundless love. He embodies love and exists on the adorned body plane. He takes many forms according to the way his compassion needs to manifest. He may be a peaceful and calming four-armed youth. He may be the eternally vigilant and exceptionally active 11-headed and thousand-armed deity. This form is incarnate in all the Dalai Lamas. His mind stream is even in the great black one, Nagpo Mahakala, the terrifyingly compassionate dispeller of obstacles to enlightenment. Boundless love watches over the fourth world with his saviorous emanation, the great goddess Tara, Dolma, who like him emanates into many forms. Tibetans live in a reality spiderweb by a complex network of Aboriginal and Buddhist forms and ideas that are woven together by intelligence and imagination. Through deep contemplation and rational investigation, the Tibetans have unveiled a vital truth concerning our place in reality. All beings, divine and ordinary, are interconnected by means of the awareness and energy of mind and body. Ultimately, explain the teachings, all forms, energy, and thoughts issue out of the emptiness of the void. Navajo Spiritual Ecology. The Navajo universe is alive. It is permeated by subtle life and mind power and operates according to a rhythm, and other than culminates in the ideal conditions of beauty, Hosho. All beings, people, are expressions of and actors in the creation and maintenance of this cosmic order. The Navajo, and by extension all human beings, are Nahoka Dine'e, Earth's surface walkers. With them in this ideal but changeable universe live empowered people, Adian Dine'e, the divinities or holy people. They differ from the Earth's surface walkers in having complete knowledge of beauty and being composed exclusively of purified, faultless energies, winds of mind and vitality. Natural phenomena such as mountains, mesas, canyons, caves, rock formations, great rivers, weather conditions, and skylight are the abodes of the holy people. Ancient Anasazi ruins and canyon caves are considered the homes of Yeis, tutelary holy people. A sandstone pinnacle in Canyon de Chelly called Spider Rock is the home of Spider Grandmother. She taught the great goddess Changing Woman how to weave. A web of rainbows connects her pinnacle to the canyon walls beyond. Spider Grandmother also gave the goddess's twin sons a magical feather to protect them on their journey to the sun. The warrior twins now live atop Navajo Mountain. Interestingly, Navajo Mountain is known to be the head of the Earth Woman, essence of the earth. The holy people's substance and reality are actually of the nature of wind and subtlety of light. This puts them beyond the view of normal sight. We require insight in order to see them. In this pantheon of divinities are all the necessary models of the ideal Navajo person. Indeed, the holy people are, in many respects, much like the ordinary, unempowered Navajos. They are anthropomorphic in appearance, even live much as Navajos do. The difference is that they have achieved an irreversible and perennial state of divinity. This attunement with the forces, rhythms, and inherent order of the cosmos is Hosho, beauty, which includes but is not limited to physical beauty. Although we Earth surface walkers cannot travel on spiderweb-like bridges or of rainbows and sunbeams from one plane to the next, or appear and disappear at will in our own world, as do the holy people, Navajo philosophers and chanters tell us that we can achieve their empowered state through our own efforts. We can develop our imperfect body minds to their potential state of beauty and everlasting life, because we are of the same stuff as the holy people. We are all emanations, to use a Buddhist term, of that oneness and power of beauty permeating the feet, legs, body, mind, and speech of the earth. Divine models. When Navajos look at their world, they see in it various divinities who serve as models of how they would ideally think and act. When they visit, for example, sacred Navajo Mountain, they know it to be the head of the Earth Woman, whose persona is intimately connected to the Navajo's mother goddess, Changing Woman, mother of the warrior twins living at its summit. Changing Woman appears in many guises. She has two main aspects, the youthful white shell or white bead woman, and the mature great goddess, Changing Woman, Turquoise Woman. But she is also the front out of which emanate the four directional jewel women, and she is spiritually connected to the primal energies and elements of Earth Woman, Mountain Woman, Wood Woman, and Water Woman. In the legendary teachings, Changing Woman's twin sons, the warrior twins, who embody the qualities of fierce power and nurturing concern, are able to emanate into subsidiary forms with other qualities in order to accomplish their tasks of dispelling harmful powers from the people and their land. The quest by the twins for transmission of spiritual power by their father, the Sun Bearer, is a central metaphor for the Navajo's own journey toward the ideal state of beauty. Changing Woman's married sun-bearer upon attaining puberty. Originally an earth surface walker, he saved the ancestors of the Navajo from rising floodwaters during their emergence into the present fifth world. The tutelary divinities rewarded him with the task of bearing the fiery sun disk from his home in the east to his home in the western reaches of the cosmos. In the process, he attained the goal of every Navajo, that of the everlasting life of the holy people. As wielder of the sun, he is master of the power that pervades all the phenomenal world, making him the appropriate mate for the mother goddess of all life. Sunbearer lives with Changing Woman in their western home. It is said to exist on an island somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. On it, a glorious circular hogan constructed out of sunbeams, rainbows, dark rain clouds, mist, dawn, and twilight. White shell, turquoise, abalone, and jet adorn its four quadrants and doorways. One expects nothing less of the Mother Goddess and Sun Father than to go off into the sunset, there to live together on a glorious sacred island. Ideal surroundings are made for ideal beings. Navajos have other well-defined personifications of their ideal state of being in the form of a vivid assembly of helpful and highly active holy people, the Yes. The Yes are like certain Buddhas from the adorned body realm, the Tibetans' tutelaries or yidams. The Yehis serve as links between the ultimate empowered reality and the earth surface reality. Traditionally oriented Navajos see life as a path toward beauty and everlasting life through the help of their tutelary deities. Although no perfect parallels exist, the similarity of meaning and function of the Navajos and Tibetans' ideal beings, deities, is remarkable. This unity reveals either a fundamental archetype in all human psyches or evidence of an archaic psychocultural system preserved by far-flung peoples who have always had it as part of their way of life. More than likely, both are true. Let's meet some of these helpful mediators between the ideal and ordinary realms of Navajo experience. The most senior Navajo Yei is Hashchei Ti'i, talking god. His honorific title is Yeibiche, grandfather of the gods. Since he is what one might call the executive of the Council of Tutelaries, he is the deity of the East, the dawn. He is the first movement of creation, the arising of the morning star and sun's energy, the dawning of reality. As such, Navajos pray to the dawn's rays in light, knowing that they contain the energy and mind of Talking God. By thus linking with their main tutelary deity, Navajos take on Talking God's qualities and persona so as to imbue themselves with pure mind and beauty over the course of the day. Talking God, explains one chanter, is thought itself. Navajo philosophers recognize that all reality issues first from thought and then is made manifest through speech and physical action. As such, Talking God is not only the initiator in the creation of reality, he is its totality incarnate. Similarly, among Tibetans, the executive deity of the Tantric Buddhist mandala universe is enigmatic tutelary known as the Diamond Being, Dorje Senpa Vajrasattva. He embodies the total of the five Buddha families, wisdom energies, and is generally positioned in the eastern quarter of the Tantric mandala, fused as it were with the unshakable one, the transcendent Buddha of the East. In some Tantric systems, the diamond being completely replaces the unshakable one as the bearer of the wisdom energy of the East. This substitution is understandable since both are members of the Eastern Dorje family, whose tutelary deities possess the combined powers of the dawn and the diamond or thunderbolt, after which the family is named. These beings and symbols demonstrate the importance of the East and particularly the dawn's initial bright light of awakening after a long dark night of the spirit. The Dorje family of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, tutelary divinities, and protectors are the most powerful of the five Tantric Buddha families. They wield the energy of the beginning and ending phases of mental action. The unshakable one signifies the awakening of enlightened consciousness, while the diamond being is its culmination as the model of the fully developed body-mind of the Tantric practitioner. Thus, the central significance of the diamond being is closely linked to that quality of light and mind rising unshakably and dawn-like out of the void of the cosmos and into the reality of the ordinary world.